Episode 5: Swordplay and Magic. I turned 5. A modest birthday party was held in my honor. It seems this country doesn't have a custom of celebrating birthdays every year. However, it's traditional for family to give gifts when a child reaches certain milestone ages. Those milestones are 5, 10, and 15. And since 15 is the age of adulthood here, the system is refreshingly straightforward. Paul gave me swords for a birthday present, 2 of them. One was a real sword, long and heavy for a 5-year-old, and the other was a shorter wooden practice sword. The real one had been properly forged, with a sharpened edge. It was absolutely not the kind of thing a child should be carrying around. A man must keep a sword in his heart, to protect those he holds dear. The lecture that followed went on so long that I just smiled and let it wash over me. Paul seemed to be enjoying himself thoroughly, but eventually Zenith cut him off with a firm, "That's enough." Paul gave a wry smile and wrapped up with, "In any case, keep it put away unless you actually need it." What he really wanted to give me, I think, was a sense of awareness and responsibility that comes with carrying a blade. Zenith gave me a book. "Because Rudy loves reading," she said, and handed me a botanical encyclopedia. I couldn't help letting out a little "oh" of delight. Books are expensive in this world, and for good reason. They have paper making, but apparently no printing technology. Everything is written by hand. The encyclopedia was thick and filled with carefully drawn illustrations that made it easy to understand. I could only wonder what it must have cost her. "Thank you so much, Mother. This is exactly what I wanted." She pulled me into a tight hug. Roxy gave me a rod, a simple thing, a stick about 30 centimeters long with a small red stone set at the tip. "I made this recently. It slipped my mind since you were already casting magic from the very beginning, but it's customary for a master to craft a staff for any apprentice who can use beginner's-level spells. I apologize." Apparently, that was the tradition. Roxy had always resisted being called master, but it seemed she couldn't bring herself to ignore the custom entirely. "Yes, master, I'll treasure it." At that, Roxy made a sour face. The very next day, serious swordsmanship training began. The basics, swinging drills and forms, practicing strikes and technique against a wooden dummy set up in the yard, and sparring with my father to work on footwork and weight transfer. Solid, fundamental stuff. I liked it. In this world, swordsmanship is held in very high regard. Nearly all the heroes in the books I'd read were armed with swords. A few wielded axes or hammers, but they were the minority. Nobody carried spears. That's because the despised Supered tribe fight with tridents. Spears are the weapon of demons. That's just common knowledge here. The books even featured a few of these demons, portrayed as indiscriminate killing machines that devoured friend and foe alike. Given that cultural backdrop, it's perhaps no surprise that the swordsmanship in this world surpasses what I knew from my previous life. Masters can cleave boulders in two with a single stroke, or send a sword slash flying through the air to strike a distant enemy. Paul himself can split a decent-sized rock. When I figured out that flattery would get me demonstrations, I clapped and cheered until he'd shown me the technique over and over. A son who could already wield advanced magic at his age, clapping with delight at his father's swordsmanship, Paul must have been absolutely thrilled. Though no matter how many times I watched, I couldn't work out how it actually worked. So I asked him to explain it. "You go in with a kst and then zit, like that." "Like this?" "Idiot! That's more of a push into a thwam. I said kst into a zit, lighter, more fluid." That was about as far as the explanation got. My working theory is that swordsmanship in this world draws on magical power. Unlike magic, which manifests in obviously mystical ways, sword techniques seem to specialize in physical augmentation, enhancing the body and reinforcing metal like a blade. There's no other way to explain moving at superhuman speeds and cleaving through stone.
Paul has no conscious awareness that he's using magical power. That's why he can't explain it. But if I can figure out how to replicate it, I'll essentially have unlocked a body enhancement boost through magic, worth pursuing. There are 3 dominant schools of swordsmanship in this world. The first is the sword god style, an aggressively offensive school built around the idea that the best defense is a relentless offense. Its entire purpose is to land the first strike, speed above all else. Strike first, strike decisively, and if the enemy isn't down, keep hitting until they are. If I had to compare it to something from my old world, it would be the Satsura Jigen Ryu.
The second is the water god style, the polar opposite of the sword god style, a defensive school built around deflection and counterattacks. Its guiding principle is strictly non-aggression. It rarely initiates. But at the master level, they say a practitioner can counter any attack, including magic and projectiles. It's the preferred style of court knights and nobles, whose primary duty is protection. The third is the North God style. Less a sword style and more a philosophy of combat. It's packed with techniques for improvising field dressings mid-fight and weaponizing whatever happens to be nearby. The fighting style is utterly unpredictable. Think Jackie Chan with a sword. Because it includes techniques for treating wounds on the fly and fighting through serious injury or even lost limbs, it's popular among mercenaries and adventurers. Together, these are known as the 3 great styles, with practitioners found all over the world. Those who aspire to reach the absolute peak of swordsmanship seek out the masters of each school and spend their lives chasing perfection, but such people are rare. For most, the practical path is to sample several styles and take the best from each. Paul himself is primarily a sword god practitioner, but he's also picked up elements of both water god and north god. Sword god and water god in their pure forms are apparently too extreme for general real-world use. As with magic, sword ranks run the same progression: beginner, intermediate, advanced, saint, king, emperor, and god. The god in each school's name comes from the title given to its founder. The founder of the water god style, for instance, was simultaneously a mage who could wield water god-ranked magic, divine with the sword and divine with magic, by all accounts absurdly powerful. A minor note on convention: when referring to a swordsman, you say water god or water saint. When referring to a mage, you add ranked, water god ranked or water saint ranked. Roxy, for example, is a water saint ranked mage. I'll be learning both the sword god style and the water god style, offense and defense, respectively. That said, Father, from what you've described, the North god style sounds the most well-rounded. Rudy, don't be absurd. That's not swordsmanship. It's just fighting with a sword. I see. North god seems to be looked down upon among the 3 schools, or perhaps Paul just personally dislikes it, though it's worth noting he himself is apparently advanced ranked in North god, despite that apparent disdain. You clearly have a gift for magic, but learning the sword won't hurt you. Aim to become the kind of mage who can hold his own against sword god attacks. A magic swordsman, you mean? Huh? A magic swordsman is a swordsman who can use magic. In your case, it'd be the other way around, wouldn't it? I wasn't sure what the difference was supposed to be. Whether you started as a fighter or a mage, a magic swordsman was a magic swordsman as far as I was concerned. Either way, training in swordsmanship will feed back into my magic. The problem is that Paul performs body enhancement instinctively, which means he can't teach it deliberately. I'll need to figure it out on my own. Whether it's just a matter of building physical conditioning or whether I need to crack the underlying theory, I'd better work on that. Do you actually hate sword training? I'd been lost in thought, and Paul was watching me with a worried look. Maybe it's because I've been called magically gifted. He seemed to be fretting that I didn't want to be training with swords. But he had the wrong idea. It wasn't that I disliked sword training.
I simply preferred quiet indoor study sessions alone with Roxy over sweating it out in the yard with a grown man. I'm an introvert type, what can I say? That said, it's a matter of preference, not priority. I've made my mind to truly live in this world, and that means giving my all to both the sword and to magic. Not at all. I want to become just as skilled with a sword as I am with magic. Paul was visibly moved by that. He nodded with a broad smile and raised his wooden sword. Right then, time for striking drills. Come at me. Simple man. Whether I'll end up relying more on magic or swordsmanship in the long run, I have no idea. Honestly, it doesn't much matter to me. Yes, Father. But being a good son, that's something you should start early. In my past life, I caused my parents grief until the very end. If I'd been kinder to them, maybe my siblings wouldn't have thrown me out of the house without a second thought. So, cherish your parents. Around the time I was taking my first steps into swordsmanship, the magic lessons had already moved into fairly technical, practical territory. If you cast Waterfall, Heat Island, and Icicle Field in sequence, what happens? Fog forms. Correct. And how would you dispel that fog?
Cast Heat Island again to warm the ground. Exactly right. Now show me. Using multiple elemental types in sequence to produce a specific effect, this is called combined magic. The spell books have rain spells, but strangely, no spell for producing fog. So a mage layers different elemental spells to recreate natural phenomena through ingenuity rather than a single dedicated incantation. With no microscopes in this world, the underlying science behind natural phenomena hasn't been mapped out. Combined magic is a testament to the creativity and problem-solving of mages who came before. Not that I necessarily need to do it the complicated way. I could just cast a rain spell at ground level and call it done. But reproducing natural phenomena intentionally, that's an intuitive concept. With enough lateral thinking, the possibilities seem endless. Magic can do anything, can't it? It cannot do anything. Don't get overconfident. Stay calm, assess what you can and cannot do, and execute accordingly. Even as Roxy scolded me, my mind was already dancing with ideas, railguns, optical camouflage. Besides, if you go around telling people you can do anything, they'll start pushing impossible tasks onto you. Speaking from experience, Sensei? Yes. Noted. That was worth remembering. Getting saddled with other people's problems sounded deeply unappealing. But are there really that many people out there piling work onto mages? There are. Advanced mages aren't exactly numerous. Roughly 1 in 20 people can fight it all. Of those, only 1 in 20 is a mage, meaning mages make up about 1 in 400 of the population. Common enough not to be remarkable, but those who've properly completed their training through a magic academy, a true advanced mage, perhaps 1 in 100 mages. 1 advanced mage for every 40,000 people. Someone who can handle both intermediate and advanced spells plus combined magic, what they can accomplish dramatically increases, which makes them constantly in demand. In this country, home tutors are required to hold advanced rank or higher. The credential carries real weight. There are magic academies? Yes, every major nation has them. A magic school. I'd figured there would be. And here we go. The school arc begins. The most prestigious of all is the Ranoa Magic University. Oh, a university too? How does it differ from the other schools? Better facilities, better instructors, the curriculum is more modern and advanced than what you'd find elsewhere. Did you attend the university, Sensei? I did, though honestly, magic academies tend to be rather exclusive, and being a Miggard, I couldn't gain admission to the ordinary ones. The magic academies in kingdoms like Ranoa cater to the nobility, and being a non-human is enough to get your application rejected outright. Discrimination against magical races has been declining, she said, but there's still plenty of headwind. Ranoa Magic University has none of that stuffy elitism. Sound theory is taken seriously regardless of how unconventional it is, and because it admits students of all races, there's active research into the unique magic traditions of each race. If you decide to pursue the path of a mage, Rudy, I'd recommend the university. Clearly some alumni pride talking, but she was singing its praises with real conviction. Still, that felt like a distant prospect. Showing up at age 5 seemed like a recipe for getting bullied. Isn't it a bit early to be thinking about that? You're right, and following Sir Paul's wishes and becoming a swordsman or knight is a perfectly valid path, too. There have even been people who earned a knighthood first and then went to the Magic University as a mature student. The sword and magic aren't mutually exclusive. There is the path of the magic swordsman. Right. Still, it seemed like both Paul and Roxy, for different reasons, were worrying about the same thing. Paul had seen my magical ability and feared I was secretly indifferent to the sword. Roxy had seen my enthusiasm for sword training and was fearing I was losing interest in magic. Lately, my magic power had grown, and the underlying principles had become clearer to me, so I'd admittedly been a bit distracted during lessons. And since Roxy had more or less forced magic lessons on me from the age of 3, maybe she thought 2 years in I was starting to burn out. Each of them, from their different vantage points, was trying to tell me there was a middle road available. But that's all still a long way off, isn't it? For you, yes, Roxy said, and smiled a little sadly. Though I'm running low on things left to teach you, we're approaching your graduation, so it felt right to bring these things up. Graduation?